sends his regrets that he couldn't make it, but you got stuck with me instead. Sorry. So what we're going to talk about is the path to digital leadership. Why Red Hat is your trusted open source partner for digital transformation. And as you've seen from earlier presenters, you guys are doing some stuff that frankly I wasn't aware of around education and around IT modernization. And it's really actually incredibly impressive to see what your plans are. And I hope that we can be involved in helping you bring those plans to fruition. My contact information is up there. I am Thomas at redhat.com. I've been here for that long. I've still got that email address. And you can follow me on Twitter at Thomas D. Cameron. So we're going to have a couple of different sections about digital transformation and leadership. And the first thing to really understand, or to sort of set the ground rules on, is what digital transformation is. Digital transformation is not just about the technology. Certainly there are technology components to becoming a digital organization, but it's fundamentally changing how you operate and deliver value to customers. And as it says, it's a cultural change. You have to be ready to fail. And I know that's kind of scary, right? Like, we've all been taught, never admit when you're wrong, and always, challenge when you're somebody's opposing you. But the thing about digital transformation is you have to be ready to move very, very quickly, and you have to be able to acknowledge when you've made a mistake, learn from that mistake, and move on. Now, what is a digital leader? So if you look at Christensen's theory of disruptive innovation, this is from '97. This is information that was used in the book, The Innovator's Dilemma. You've got those innovators that are sustaining innovations, the companies that are really creative and doing new and exciting and cool stuff. And then there's that little company that's in a garage, right? 2 guys and a dog and a bag of cookies who's coming up with the next Google or the next Facebook or whatever. And they come sneaking up underneath with the disruptive innovations. Both of those innovation channels are going towards the most demanding customers. The most demanding customers want to see cool new stuff if it helps their enterprise. You have to determine in digital transformation where you are, what phase you in right now. Are you actually executing? And according to 451 Research, about 42% of the enterprises that they interviewed are in execution phase. They've already got a plan, they've evaluated technologies, they're working. Are you just doing an evaluation, trying to figure out what makes sense to transform? Are you considering it but haven't really made any choices yet? Or do you have no strategy? It's a little shocking to me, the percentage of enterprises that have no strategy. Those businesses will not be here in 5 years. That is a fact. If you're not innovating, you're going to die as a company. Digital leaders move fast. They see opportunities. They keep their organizations connected. They are not internal barriers. They're nimble. They're flexible. They have applications and services that bring speed to the enterprise. Digital leaders are high performers as well. According to Google Cloud plus Dora, the survey, high-performing organizations deploy code 46 times faster than low-performing ones. What that means is they're rolling out applications to provide service to their customers at a lightning pace. And yes, they're going to make mistakes. And yes, there are things that are going to happen that aren't going to work well. But instead of that being a big catastrophe, they learn from it and they move on. So those are some of the signs of really, truly innovative companies. If you look at Barclays Bank, right? Anyone who's worked in financial services, I came to Red Hat from Bank of America. Anyone who's worked in financial services knows that most banks are super conservative and very slow moving, and they are averse to risk. Barclays is like, nope, we want to be able to innovate at lightning speed. And so they have said in talking to us as a success story, they want to become the bank of the future. And you don't do that by being conservative and slow. You need to connect now, connect the new stuff, and connect the next stuff. You have to, as a digital transformation leader, be interoperable, flexible, scalable, and all of these emerging technologies from containerization, infrastructure as a service, big data, cloud, artificial intelligence, machine learning, all of these are technologies that are here now that you need to be adapting to. I was really impressed when I heard the Prime Minister talk about what you're doing around education. So I wanted to bring up Minerva Schools is a school that is actually adopting digital transformation to try to make their educational process better, more effective, and more engaging around the world, more available as well. So what does this mean to you? We understand disruption. We disrupted the Unix market back in the 90s and early 2000s. We were that innovator that came in from behind from the garage with, a dog and a bag of Oreos. We've watched Tesla, we watched Uber, we've watched Amazon, we've watched Airbnb, we've watched all of those and enabled a lot of them to do what they're able to do to disrupt the industries that they're in. And the thing to remember is, very few industries are really durable, right? Every industry is being changed by software. Every enterprise is being changed by software. Every government is being changed by software. So you have to pay attention and understand that you have to adapt, or as I said earlier, your company will fail, or your enterprise. So as an incumbent, as somebody who has historically been the innovator, you see the curve, right? From when you first start hearing about somebody coming along behind you who's disruptive, and as you go down the model, they have a validated model, they have critical mass of adaptation, and all of a sudden they're able to get to scale and mature, and boom, they've passed you up. And all of a sudden you go from being that incumbent where of course everybody's going to come and buy your product or use your service to all of a sudden, holy cow, what just happened? I'm looking at their taillights. So what would you do differently if you were the disruptor, if you were the one coming in and saying, here's how we can change things and make things better? If you look at GovTech in Singapore, Singapore has adopted emerging technologies around cloud computing and messaging and decision making and things like that to provide a broad suite of services to the citizens of Singapore. The speaker who was up on the stage before lunch was talking about the digitization of the Bahamian government, and I was like, that's exactly what we did in Singapore. And the results have been incredible. The services are faster, the citizens are happier, everything works better. So you have to determine where you are in your digital transformation journey. Are you in the emerging phase where you're just learning to adopt new technologies to transform your business? Are you in the process of transforming where you're accelerating transformation to become a leader? You're making that technology and that capability and the methodology more ubiquitous? Or are you out in front actually innovating, continuously innovating to stay a leader in your industry? We recommend that as you move forward with your digital transformation, you adopt a DevOps methodology. If you look at traditional software deployment and development models over on the left-hand side, do those environments foster a culture of innovation? Maybe, but not generally. Do they give the enterprise that's adopted them agility? No, definitely not. Waterfall development in the old style, designed by committee is terrible for agility. Your speed to value is slow. The development life cycle can be months to years in many cases for rolling out a new technology. The people needed are huge. You've got the big hierarchical model where you've got multiple managers and teams of teams and meetings and all that crazy stuff. Infrastructure cost in traditional models is very, very high, and there's a lot of risk because new technologies have made it so much easier and so much faster to innovate that if you're not adopting those new technologies, including, and not just technologies, but methodologies like DevOps, I want to be over here on the right-hand side, right? Do I want to be in a maybe innovative environment, or do I want to have someplace, or do I want to work someplace that is infectiously innovative? Do I want to work someplace that's definitely agile, that's fast time to value, that's a 1 to 3 month life cycle for a new application, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? The whole concept of the two-pizza team, if you've read any books on software development, the two-pizza team. If your team is bigger than can be fed by 2 pizzas, it's probably too big. These are all things that DevOps models can foster. Now, that raises the question, are you a digital transformation leader? If you're not alone. 90% of the enterprises that were surveyed by MIT Sloan said, yes, we are engaged in digital transformation. 16% said, yeah, we're actually doing it really hardcore, right? Everybody else kind of had a toe in the pool. So you're not alone. If you feel like you're behind, that's okay, because really everybody is, except for a few leaders. You have to be able to maintain, optimize, and innovate, right? We've all seen the number that 70% of IT budgets are used to just keep the lights on, right? Newer versions of existing software or maintenance on existing software, with only 30% to actually innovate. we recommend that you shift your investment to innovation. Optimize the IT that you have already, because that stuff's not going to go away in a lot of cases, or at least not easily. Integrate your applications, your data, your processes to make your organization more agile. Add and manage a hybrid cloud infrastructure so that you can have cloud-like services in your enterprise and also leverage public cloud. Develop cloud-native applications, which we'll talk about more in a little while, and automate everything. If a human being is having to go physically put hands on a server, you're doing it wrong. Do it through an automation process, and I'll talk about in a little while. So now what we want to see is maybe those percentages don't change a whole lot, but the goal here is to have it so that you are doing your integration automation even in those phases that are in maintenance and optimization, but you give yourself a huge runway to build new systems and deploy new applications and provide new value to your customers. Barclays, another, like I said earlier, usually or typically a very, very conservative financial services house. They went with DevOps, and they've been doing amazing things with it. So how do we get there? Well, the first thing that we want to do is adopt next generation architecture. Do things in a cloud-native fashion, new ways of developing and delivering and integrating systems and applications. Have agile processes. This goes back to that cultural change that I talked about earlier. Digital transformation is not just about bits and bytes and servers. It's about changing the way you think about doing business. And then develop a collaborative culture. I swear I think that that's probably the hardest phase. Getting folks who have traditionally been siloed, right? How many folks work in IT operations? Okay, how many folks work in storage? Okay, because usually when I have a big room with like storage and IT, I'm like, do you guys love each other? And they're like, so breaking those barriers down, that's part of becoming an agile environment, an agile enterprise. So there are a lot of challenges involved. This is one way that a financial services customer of ours did it. They consolidated and standardized. They got everything virtualized that they could. They had a private cloud for their dev and test environment, and they pushed stuff out to the public cloud for their production environments. They automated everything, and they eventually moved to containerization, and then they did recognize the benefits of next generation technologies. So that next generation architecture, I'll talk a little bit more about that. You have to put users first. And again, I was very gratified and I was very thrilled to hear with multiple people talking up here about how the citizens are the first consideration in increasing or improving the IT capabilities of the islands. I thought that was fantastic. I love hearing that. If you look, Forbes did an analysis, and they found that almost everybody, like 90%, 87% of enterprises were saying, yes, absolutely, we're investing in best-in-breed technologies for our users. And a whole bunch of them were still in the 10 to 25% increase, and there were a third of the customers that they talked to were talking about spending over 25% or increasing by over 25% to adopt best-in-breed technologies. So enterprises get it. And if you look at what they're doing, when we asked them, when you're developing cloud-native software, which of any of the approaches do you want to take? Are you going to do strictly one cloud? Are you going to do any cloud? Are you going to do only private cloud? Or are you only going to, do it behind the firewall on bare metal machines? So the neat thing about this is over half of the enterprises recognize that they did have to design their applications to be agile, to be able to run across multiple clouds, up to and including private clouds. So it's amazing to me to watch enterprise IT really starting to turn that battleship to, oh yeah, we do need to be flexible, we do need to be agile. When you're designing a next generation architecture, there are some components that are going to be universal, whether they're Red Hat components or other vendors. You've got to be able to integrate your applications. You've got to be able to virtualize. You need to run on containers. You need to be able to orchestrate those containers, and you need to be able to automate the deployment of your infrastructure. These are all technologies that are available through the open source community and also supported by Red Hat. So whether you're in a traditional infrastructure, whether you're in hybrid or multi-cloud, or if you're 100% cloud-native app platforms, these are still going to be necessary. I talked a little bit about changing process, adopting a culture of agility, adopting a culture of change inside of your enterprise. So there are some steps that it takes to adopt that agile nature. You have to improve your development process. You have to develop your business process, You have to develop a deployment process and improve it, and you have to bake in security from day zero. So what we recommend is, again, taking on a cultural change where you open your culture up. At Red Hat, we're an open source company, right? So we're super transparent. Whenever anything is going to be done, we typically will discuss it on email lists or in-person meetings or web-based meetings. There are a whole lot of voices that get to contribute, and it's made us where we are today. We're a $3 billion company. We were $750 million 8 years ago, so we've been blowing up. So open your culture, transparency and collaboration. Automate as much as you can. Man, get your talented IT folks off of having to go and do patches, right? Automate that stuff. And choose the right platform. Decide what it is you want to do around your applications. Cloud native, that means Linux. So you want to improve in your business process. You want to improve orchestration. And I'm not talking at this point about orchestration of bringing up new systems. I'm talking about orchestration of data and application flow. So have systems of engagement that are synced with systems of record so that knowledge workers can collaborate. Have a single source of truth and just connect it via APIs. Automate everything that you can. And again, I'm not talking about systems management at this point. I'm talking about automated decision making. Use business process management and business rules engines so that as input comes in from your customers, in this case the citizens, if they meet certain criteria, the process just gets kicked off automatically, right? We don't have to have a person sitting there, stamping a book or something like that. Enable the line of business. Abstract the code underneath your applications from the interface so that a line of business can say, oh, hey, I have this rule set, but it's not really working the way that I expected. And they can have a business analyst go in and just tweak the settings through a web UI. So instead of having to go back and engage developers, you can modify your workflow on the fly. And analyze, 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 analyze. Analyze data flows, analyze times that the customer's spending engaging with you, analyze how long transactions are taking. We've got to be test-driven. Improving these processes has a very real return on investment. Your development lifecycle can be improved, according to a Red Hat case study with TMG Health, by 75%. Development costs can be cut by 60%. Market reach can be increased by 50%. Raise your hand if you don't want to reach 50% more customers by making some changes in your process. Right? I mean, come on, 50% increase? Most companies, if they had a 10% increase in reach, they'd be like, woo, I'm getting a raise. So I mean, it makes sense to do this. You want to adapt your architecture. Via management and automation, the whole point here is to reduce costs, make your IT teams a lot less bogged down by just the administrative crud that they have to do all the time. It can also improve cross-team collaboration, right? Like I said earlier, when I made the joke about the storage guys and the operations guys doing this number. Well, if you put them all on the same team and make them collaborate together, that sounds harsh. Give them the opportunity to figure out how to collaborate together so that neither one of them feels adversarial about the other ones. Unite those development teams, unite the operations teams, get everybody to communicate so that you can get software out there faster and faster and faster. Do a small project first. Do a small project and be successful, and then you can promote that adoption, right? And you have to have broad adoption. We have talked to customers who have tried to do small grassroots DevOps type of projects. They are, unfortunately, generally not successful. It really has to have a top-down type of approach. But when you have IT leadership who says, this is the way we are going to do things, the changes can be dramatic. So after you adapt that architecture, you want to control your provisioning, configuration, orchestration, compliance reporting and mitigation. You want drift detection and management, and you want to be able to introspect your containers, your application containers, to make sure that they are secure and working correctly, and I'll talk more about these. You have to have security baked in day zero. And by that I mean, when there is a proposal for a new application or a new service for your customers, security needs to be at the table. Application security, infrastructure security, you must consider that. So when you do the design up at the top left, security needs to be involved so that if there's a glaring problem, they can go, whoa, hold on, have we considered this? Build that security process into your build process. As part of your automated testing, check for vulnerabilities, check for open ports. As you run, Make sure that you have security scans, whether it's scans of containers or scans of network ports, and then automate your system for scanning and compliance. So if something happens and an application is misconfigured and we see that there's a port open that shouldn't be, or if you're silly enough to use PHP with the upload enabled, don't do that. That we can mitigate that, and we can do it automatically. We do a scan, we see the vulnerability, we change the config file, we just get a report about it. Instead of it being all hands on deck, you get a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning, you got to go log in and make changes. And then revise, update, and remediate as the landscape changes. Because the only constant in IT is change, right? So it's going to change, and that's fine. Learn from the changes, adapt that to your security process, and move on. I want to come back to culture, because culture will make or break your IT environment. Red Hat is part of the open source culture. We've been very successful in adopting open source and using that to commercial aims. And what we've learned from that is that these qualities, the ability to collaborate, the ability to share problems and admit when something's broken and say, hey man, if you've got a better idea, let me know. The ability to work together does some things like it necessitates standardization. We don't have proprietary software at Red Hat because everything we do is open source. We have to comply to RFCs, we have to comply to industry standards and so on, and we are transparent. Our bug tracking package, bugzilla.redhat.com, is 100% open to the public. How many companies do you know that will go, yep, hey, there's a problem with this thing right here in our code, and tell the world about it? That culture, that open source way, has helped us be successful, and it's helped numerous other companies be successful. The benefits of the open organization include the ability to respond to opportunities faster. Somebody somewhere hears about an opportunity to do better for the customers, and they go, hey, I heard this thing. And all of a sudden, everybody in the organization is at least aware of it, and some of them go, you know what? That sounds like an itch I want to scratch. I'm going to work on that. Clear it with the manager, and all of a sudden, things are doing better. You improve access to resources and talent for the organization. If your company's open and transparent and everybody knows what's going on, somebody out there in the job market can look at your company and go, ooh, I know that technology, and I like that, and I want to go work there. And you can inspire and motivate people at all levels to act with accountability. If everything's transparent, then when something goes wrong, you can raise your hand and say, oops, I did this wrong, and it gets addressed and you move on. It's a learning experience. There are certainly degrees of openness. I've worked in organizations that were way over on the left side of this spectrum, and I currently work in an organization that's way over on the right side of the spectrum. So again, as you are more hierarchical, more closed, you're less open, you're not going to have that innovation and agility. But as you move to the right, where you do have that free exchange of ideas, you have that sense of community. You have the meritocracy that says if you do well, it will be recognized, and it will not just be recognized by your manager, but by the entire community. Those are the goals of an open organization. Too much structure absolutely restricts speed. MIT Sloan Management Review just talks about well-designed systems and processes. That makes organizations more agile. And she says, but even great systems and processes are responsive to change only if the people who use them recognize what needs to be done and how to do it. That openness is critically important. Leaders will be able to operate as true digital leaders only when they shake their reliance on structure as the primary tool. At Red Hat, I am not an executive, but I know Jim Whitehurst, our CEO. And so when something like this comes up, we have the relationship where he can go, hey, Thomas, go represent Red Hat at this organization. I don't know any other company out there that would have that type of environment. It's a pretty phenomenal thing, and it's because of that openness and collaboration. That culture, that open source culture, powers that innovation, although it does require buy-in from executive management all the way down. And what we have found, and this sounds totally counterintuitive, don't make long-term roadmaps. And okay, everybody who's in the government, their heads just exploded, right? You know, but the thing is, you certainly know where you want to take the technology, but do small projects in furtherance of that goal. Do just enough to get started and start figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and so on. Break things into small chunks. Use rapid feedback cycles. In the open source community, we call it release early, release often. And as Linus Torvalds, the founder of Linux, says, many eyes makes all bugs shallow. You have enough people on it, they're going to go, oh, hey, no, that's wrong, fix that. Automate as much as possible. Automate your infrastructure, automate your build process, test-driven design, not behavior-driven design. If you come from software development background, there's a big argument about the two of them. Test is always going to be better because it's quantifiable. I can always see exactly where things broke. And use continuous integration and continuous deployment. Build new skills. Use pairing and mentoring to cross boundaries. Don't stress about saying, hey, I don't know that language, or I don't understand that database, or I don't understand how that storage works. Because in an open and collaborative environment, somebody should go, oh, okay, come sit next to me. Let's hammer this out. And then experiment to inform strategy. Don't be afraid to fail. Fail quickly so you know that it's not going to work and you can learn from it and then go on and be successful. Heritage Bank is another financial services environment. They engaged our Open Innovation Lab, where they actually came on site to a Red Hat facility for 6 weeks, turned off the phones, turned off instant messengers, sat down and said, here's what we have to do, and we don't know how to do it. They sat down with our developers and our consultants over a 6-week plan, came up with an entire application suite to help make their organization more agile. That's what open source is all about. That's what that rapid iteration is all about. And the success of the experiment has pushed us to go full steam with Red Hat, according to the Chief Information Officer of Heritage Bank. So I've talked about the culture and I've talked about open source. Why would you want to partner with Red Hat specifically? Well, we've been doing this for a long time. We started out with a Linux distribution back in 1993. I got a whole room of students here who weren't even a twinkle in their parents' eyes when we got started. I started on this stuff back in 95. Our first release of Enterprise Linux was back in 2002. We've been doing Enterprise Linux since 2002. We've acquired JBoss. We've acquired Manage IQ. We've developed virtualization technologies, cloud technologies, middleware technologies with the JBoss acquisition, software-defined storage, OpenShift for platform as a service. We've done more with upstream OpenStack than almost anybody out there. We acquired Inktank for software-defined storage, Enobonce for OpenStack, mobile computing, automation. I mean, it's been insane. And you can think of each one of these as a bet. We made a bet on the direction that the industry was going to go. And we've been borne out by success. We've been watching and trending how cloud computing and how digital transformation is going to go. We've made strategic acquisitions, and we've also developed software internally to make sure that we can meet the needs of the market. So our strength, obviously, is Linux, right? We've been a Linux company since 1993. The Linux kernel was only developed in 91, so we've been doing this since Linux was, in diapers. We are definitely an open source leader. And I don't say that to, thump my chest and talk about how awesome Red Hat is. I mean, I think Red Hat's pretty awesome. But when I talk about a leadership position, what I'm talking about is we are good stewards of the code. We recognize that the community got us to where we are, and our customers make us successful. So when our customers come to us and say, this is good, but I need it to be better, or I need this feature, or I need, this bug fixed, or whatever, we can marshal that change into the upstream community, which sounds a little bit weird because what we're doing is we're saying, hey, here, the rest of the world, here's an improvement in the code. But the power of community means that we succeed when that happens. And as a customer, you succeed, and the greater community succeeds. So it's very powerful. That open source leadership is not something that's a bragging right to us. It is a solemn duty to take care of. We've done a lot with hybrid cloud. We have cloud management. We have software-defined everything for cloud. And we have a comprehensive portfolio that goes way beyond just Linux and hybrid cloud. And our people and our culture are really the foundation of the strength of the rest of that. Linux is the foundation of our business. It is now the most widely used platform for cloud computing. We finally surpassed Microsoft in the cloud. Woo! So that was kind of cool. And don't get me wrong, man, Microsoft has changed so much in the last few years. We actually have a fantastic relationship, but it's like, yeah, that's right. We're bigger than Microsoft now. A little bragging right there. 54% of applications running on public clouds, running on Linux virtual machines. The OS absolutely still matters. Red Hat Enterprise Linux is the foundation, and it is an identical experience, whether you're doing on a physical machine, like on my laptop, on a virtual machine, either in a development environment or in production. in a private cloud, totally behind the firewall, or even out on public cloud. You want to have an identical experience across all of those. And on top of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, we enable everything as a service. Compute, memory, storage, networking, all of these are software defined. We have led the way in containers and microservices. So as you evolve to an environment where you're doing microservice architecture application development, we've already got you covered. We're leading the way in foundations to make sure that these are unencumbered by any sort of limitations from any one company. And we have a phenomenal relationship with ISVs. So if you need to use commercial off-the-shelf software, we've got you covered there as well. And I've talked about open source, and I will talk about open source for the rest of my life, I suspect. I'm a huge fan. GitHub, which is the biggest open source set of repositories out there, has 64 million projects. Raise your hand if you want to try to keep track of 6,400, right? It's really, really difficult. Nobody can keep track of all of them, but we do pay attention to the most active ones out there, and we focus on those technologies that our customers and our partners need, and we make improvements to build better solutions. We contribute upstream with your input, with the community's input. We make everything upstream, even competitors. We make them better by collaborating. Now, what we do is we look at business requirements, right? Because we are a commercial business and we definitely want to make sure that our customers are happy. We use open source to help enable that innovation. It's not just our engineers, it's our engineers plus hundreds of millions of open source developers out there. It's taking strength from those communities. It's giving feedback to those communities and saying, hey guys, we think that it ought to go this way. Are we on the right track? And those communities provide feedback and we continue with that. And that makes us a leader in open source innovation. The open source community is a force multiplier. So we've done this before. We have taken proprietary Unix and gone to Red Hat Enterprise Linux, proprietary middleware over to JBoss middleware, proprietary single clouds. We've moved over to open hybrid cloud. And we work with all of these upstream communities, from OS to business rules, thank you, to containerization to cloud management. We've worked with all of those. And we have hardened them and turned them into products which can be supported commercially and rolled out in a way that you know is going to be safe. It's more than just source. It's, do we have common user interfaces? Do we get those changes that, like I talked about earlier, do we get those adopted upstream? Do we have a secure value chain? It's secure when it's built, it's secure when it's compiled, it's secure when it's shipped. Do we have QA behind it? Have we tested a bunch of different scenarios? Do we have predictable, stable life cycles and support? When you get all of those together, it gives you that rapid iteration, brilliant innovation, the ability to not pay attention to all that other stuff. Just write code and do better. Community development, solving common challenges through collaboration. We have expertise, we have a global reach, and we have product security. We can have the coolest software in the world, but if you can't learn how to use it, it doesn't do a lot of good. And if you can't get support 24/7, it doesn't help. And if it's insecure, well, we go out of business. So, we also have a customer portal. Every time a customer opens a trouble ticket with us, we generate a new knowledge base article. Anytime another customer has a similar issue, that knowledge base article is going to pop up. We certify engineers and administrators so you know that you're consistently going to get good quality when you're hiring somebody with a certification. We have a global team for product security, and we have a life cycle of up to 13 years on some of our products. We are the foundation of hybrid cloud. No matter what vendor you're using, you're going to have these components, the management and automation, software-defined storage. It needs to be universal across bare metal or virtualized. You're going to have applications on top of it, and you're going to have developer tooling on top of that. Red Hat offers all of those technologies. And Gartner says 75% of organizations will have deployed multi-cloud or hybrid cloud models. This is the Red Hat product suite. And you can see, I'm not going to go into all of them because I know it's kind of an eye chart, but from the operating system to application services, software-defined storage, virtualization, middleware, all the way up through software development environments, there are Red Hat technologies that are driven by those open source technologies that are communities that you can use in your enterprise. We have the portfolio, the hybrid cloud infrastructure portfolio, cloud native application portfolio, and management and automation that enable you to roll these things out anywhere with an identical experience. Red Hat Enterprise Linux is the core, Kubernetes for orchestration, and management and automation tools to make the portfolio easier to use. So from the core OS through virtualization to storage to private cloud with OpenStack to application services with OpenShift. And on top of OpenShift, all of these different applications from business process management, business rules, API management, you name it, we've got technologies that can help your business. And then we can manage all of that with Ansible and with Satellite and with CloudForms and with Red Hat Insights to tell you preemptively before you have problems. The British Army has used our management technologies, and I don't know about you, but I don't know a lot more mission-critical environments than military environments, right? So we've been very, very successful there. As I mentioned earlier, we have training and certification, support, consulting if you need that, and also certification with third-party hardware and software. We have key partnerships with pretty much everyone that you can imagine, and importantly for this audience specifically, we have a fantastic relationship with Cloud Carib. They're here on the islands. They're a Red Hat partner. They can get all of the technologies we've talked about into your hands. So, we have been building the future. That foundation is Linux. From upstream Linux to Red Hat Enterprise Linux, through KVM for virtualization, over to cloud computing. Cloud is integral to that future. And as you look at the open hybrid cloud and managing that through containerization and Kubernetes, everything is connected. Everything's integrated. Collaborate with us. We would love to help you be successful. We're fired up about that mission. We're fired up about open source. We would love to be of service to you. So let's start off by doing that IT optimization that we talked about. We can collaborate with our partners here. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas, for reminding us of your foundation in hybrid cloud. We had several practical takeaways in application. As we transition to our afternoon keynote panel discussion, I would like to invite at this time our moderator, Philcher Grant, with the Grand Bahama Power Company, and her panelists to make their way to our podium sessions. Our panelists include Mr. Michael Wright, Data Protection Commissioner, Mr. Sheaf Duncombe, Attorney, Mr. Anthony Ramtula, Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute, and Mr. Ronaldo Russell with Cloud Carib. Let's welcome our panelists and our moderator to the stage at this time.
So this is always the most difficult crowd to speak to after lunch, so I hope you'll be very kind to us and considerate. My name is Philcher Grant, as we've said, and we're here to talk about disruptive ideas, emerging technologies. Now, I think that's just a very fancy way of saying that we're here to talk about game changers and what we consider to be possible in the future. Now, even over this summit, we've heard about things that change concept, revolutionize the way that we do business, the way we interact with each other, even the way that we think about what is possible. I mean, I've heard about concepts that a few years ago I thought was an episode on the Jetsons. Self-driving cars, EVs that can help power homes, artificial intelligence. I mean, homes that can do commands based on uttering one simple word, Alexa. Okay, sorry, Alexa. I'm a little busy right now. I'm moderating a panel on disruptive ideas. Not right now, Alexa. So like I was saying, we're here to talk about disruptive ideas and emerging technologies. And going forward, when we talk about disruptive emerging... Alexa, I didn't ask you to Google anything, okay? Thank you very much. You know what, Alexa? You're pushing it, and if you don't stop, I'm going to turn your lights off. Okay, back to what I was saying. I'm so sorry about that disruption. Alexa's a little misbehaving today. So we're talking about emerging technologies, and I'm going to have these gentlemen talk about exactly what happened today, the future, whether you prepare a plan for it. If you don't do it properly, it's still going to come. So hopefully they can give us some insight on how we can plan for the future. So we're going to keep this light, and we're going to have conversations. So I want to ask you, gentlemen, and anybody can jump in, and if you don't jump in, I'll volunteer you. What do you define a disruptor to be? It's not on?
Hello?
There you go.
Testing.
A disruptor is someone who is willing to improve something, but also to distort common practice from my perspective. I think when we look at innovation, innovation is really improving the state of the art, and a disruptor is someone who is willing, fearless, and willing to change the existing status quo with a new idea, and unafraid to take on the obstacles that usually come with coming with bringing a new idea to a market or to a community. We know that new ideas are usually violently opposed, and so disruptors have to be fearless people that are willing to improve and to displace the status quo.
Okay, so that's an interesting perspective. Does anybody else want to weigh into when you think about a disruptor, what that means to you and how you would define that?
Sure. In addition to it being an individual, it's also being identified as an entity, right, that offers a service. And initially, it could come across as disruption in a sense that it creates turmoil, but not necessarily ends up being that. It can be good, it can be bad. But in this instance, with respect to the disruption, it can be created by both individual or company. Okay?
Okay, let's explore that concept. You said that a disruptor can be good or it can be bad. What would categorize it as either, in your opinion?
With respect to it being good, in the case of an entity can offer a service to an existing company, a large one, that may not lack innovation, but is just under-servicing its existing customer base. So that particular instance, you could have a disruptor that came in and just got a piece of that market. You have some that are very bold, that go after baseline customers. You have some that goes after those that are being underserviced. And we have examples of that based on various companies that have since been launched and are doing very well. We can get into those as well.
Now, go ahead.
So, hello? Hello?
Press it. Okay.
Can you
hear me?
No.
Is it?
It's on now. It's on. It's green. I've been disrupted. I think I can speak loud enough. I'm a teacher, right? For the most part. And when we think about a disruptor, we think about things that change something from the norm. So let's, for example, take automobile. And the automobile replaced the horse and carriage. At that point, when the automobile came about, it was a disruptor. But eventually, can you imagine your life without an automobile? It's a good thing. So time is a factor when we look at what is a disruptor.
Okay, we haven't heard from our distinguished colleague at the end. Would you like to weigh into the conversation?
Yes, like I said, I think when you look at it, it's more like an entity who has created a product or service that is there to displace one of the market leaders that are there now, and then eventually take over that sector. That's how I like it, especially for tech companies.
I've heard two key words being bounced around, and I'm going to come back to that, so I want to put you on notice. I heard disruptor, and then I heard innovation. So I want to come back to those, but let's get a little bit more personal. Can you think about what disruptors would be in your particular industry, and how do you think your industry is preparing for that, or if it even is preparing for that? So anyone feel free to jump in. Okay, go ahead. I see you.
Okay, good day, everyone. I'm a lawyer by profession. Disruption in my profession is not a common thing because we tend to look back to the past for our answers. And So, usually what happens is the client tends to drive disruption in our industry. So, for instance, we are professional service providers, and in recent times, we've seen the the disruption in our industry by firms, say for instance the KPMG, the big four companies are now starting to purchase law firms in jurisdictions where they have clients that they advise. So what they refer to that is that grouping of larger firms coming together to do a lot of transactional cross-border work. They call that big law. So that's a form of disruption in the legal practice, and what it does is it displaces smaller stakeholders in the sector. From the other angle, there are smaller service providers who are now leveraging technology through the use of systems and enterprise systems and cloud computing, and they are what we refer to as new law. And so these are virtual firms, single practitioners who are able to do some of the things that the larger firms are able to do simply by virtue of leveraging technology. So, not only in the legal sector, but in general, professional services is transforming because of things such as automation and artificial intelligence. And we obviously know that blockchain is removing or disrupting intermediaries in various sectors. So from that perspective, lawyers and other professional service providers must evolve their thinking and remove that linear thinking of thinking that, well, we must do things in the old traditional ways and start to find new ways to improve our service offerings.
All right, thank you. Can any of the other panelists jump in?
Well, let's look at the education sector. We're in the Bahamas, but because of technology, we have many other colleges and universities that are now on our shores that's providing education. And so the local schools and colleges, we have to evolve. We have to embrace online education. We have to then target markets outside of the country. So the key word there, it's new. And we have to be agile. We have to know, we have to observe, but we have to change. And that's the main thing to survive when we have disruptors.
Okay.
I think within tech, especially with the company I'm with, what we wanted to do and I think we are a disruptor, what we wanted to do was align with some of the best that are out there, according to Gartner. And we have a disruptor, the first one they spoke yesterday, VMware. Virtualization was being used before VMware came around, but they actually disrupted the virtualization that was there. And then on top of that, then we had Zerto or Veeam that use that technology to disrupt how backup and replication occurs. So you have enablers and you have enhancers that enhance on the innovation that was already there and then take it and then they become disruptors.
Where I sit, from a regulator perspective, it's important that I understand as much that is being offered in terms of services from the various industries. And in doing so, it's important that we engage and we are flexible, not to a fault, because economies are not driven by regulators, but as business. And we are business advocates. So we find ways to understand as much as we can when we sit at tables involving technology that it's always changing, and as we sit there trying to work within the framework that is being made available by the policies put in place by government. It is not always and it's not often that you have guidelines for a particular industry that everybody complies with. And it's not often that one who's doing business understands that they're acting in contravention of the law because they're just not familiar with it. It's not often that many who have policies in place are relevant to the changes in their business processes that exist. So as a regulator, it's important for us not to be so rigid. We have to be flexible, but we must also be proactive as we engage the technological minds, and we must simplify our message. for the youngest in the room, because they're the ones who are going to come and they're going to succeed us. So if they never understand it, it'll be just a miserable cycle, spinning tires.
So back on the regulation, with Bahamians getting into markets like cryptocurrency and even Airbnb, which had some issues with the hotel market, how important is it, or how difficult it is for regulation to keep pace with the changing technology? And where do you find the line between keeping pace to make sure it's all done legally and we're all done in the right space, as opposed to you're holding back advancement?
Well, as opposed to taking the bold steps as a regulator, we invite the stakeholders, okay, those who have something to lose. They are driving that industry. As opposed to putting in place rules without understanding how it truly works, we then invite them so we can help inform the rules. But to date, it has proven to be amenable among those industry leaders with respect to the vacation rental by owners, the Airbnbs. As relates to cryptocurrency, there's an ongoing discussion in terms of the legal framework as to where they are with that. Blockchain technology, how it works, and how it is really meeting many challenges in terms of the GDPR that's just been introduced in May of this year, the General Data Protection Regulation. There's a lot that's going on. And it's just 3 weeks ago, I was in Brussels with the leading experts with respect to the information commissioners, data protection commissioners, and there are many discussions taking place. We all have similar issues, and they all seem to center around the new GDPR with the new technology. So as relates to the technology side, I'm satisfied that my colleague here can speak even more.
I want to add to the data commissioner's comments. I think the rate in which technological convergence and the way that technology evolves so quickly is very difficult on smaller countries to evolve at that pace. So what we do is we tend to evaluate risk for parties in the business environment. So the business environment has to be structured from a regulator's point of view. We need to analyze and speak with the stakeholders to find out what their concerns are for the business that they conduct. In the Bahamas, one of the disadvantages of not being a member of the controversial WTO is that we do not have the clustering or the grouping of those industries to the level where those industries lead. Now, we do have tourism, financial services, and a few other sectors, but there's a wider amount of data available in our country that we are not collecting at a regulatory level. And I think that clustering and bringing groups together, and we start to now have an idea of where we would like to go, what are the global discussions and themes in various sectors, and how do we address the risks and opportunities in those sectors. And from that, regulation is stimulated based on, I guess I would call it a flow state versus when you're in one position. So I think as we evolve as a country, and which we are doing, and conferences like this allow stakeholders to come together, meet, and to discuss issues. So you've heard a lot from our foreign counterparts. We know that what we are trying to attract to the country is an investment that has an impact on our economy, on our society. So these are the forums in which we discuss those things, and then we go behind the scenes. We take our notes and we say, okay, this is what we need to do to become competitive. This is what we need to do to become sustainable in terms of the growth. I just want to touch base very shortly on hypergrowth, which is a new emerging trend we are seeing from technology companies as well. So the Bahamas is a small jurisdiction, but we're very attractive in a number of ways. The concept of growth has now, because of technology, evolved. So hypergrowth companies are usually companies that leverage technology, leverage new processes and procedures, new business models. And from that, these companies are now entering markets at a rapid pace, and they're expanding at a rapid pace. So a country like the Bahamas, we are always consuming new products, new services, and new business processes. And because of our place in the value chain, the global value chain, we are now seeing that we have to become more dynamic in setting the business environment for doing business. Otherwise, we'll be passed over. So it's important for government to take the approach of collecting information from its stakeholders, and clustering is one of those ways in which we can do it. And this is a great clustering forum, and we need to do this in other sectors as well.
So I think it's fair to say that whether you plan for it or not, the future is going to come. And if you don't properly plan for it, you're going to get left in the past. How do we as a country make sure that we're not obsolete? Because we're talking about the fast pace of technology, all these emerging markets. What role do you think education plays in this, and how can we ready the nation to make sure that we are prepared for these disruptors and that we can take advantage of it and not be riding the tail end of that wave?
Well, we've started. We're starting by changing the culture. We're introducing technology earlier and earlier to our students. And we're observing and implementing the global standards. So, like for example, with our ICT program that we tested last summer, in 3 years we'll be producing workers for job-ready workers for the industry at a fairly high level. For example, for Cisco, if you are CCNA certified, your salary is somewhat equivalent to someone with a bachelor's degree. They would have to spend 4 years at a university to get that degree. But with our program, and if everything goes all right, in 3 years, just after completing high school, another 3 months, and we will have, in this group, 175 Cisco certified network administrators. So, and with the MOU, which again BTVI had a big part to play with, we've gone one step further. We're going into the high schools, and these students, they after grade 9, right now, they'll start to learn programming, and they'll be given the tools that they'll need to succeed, and they don't even know that they're preparing.
So I have a question for you. A few years ago, the concept of this company would have been looked at probably as a disruptor. I wanted to explore what do you think could be possible conflicts that come from disruptors and how we can prepare for that and how can we address those and resolve those?
As far as a disruptive company, I'll use Amazon as an example.
Okay.
Obviously, they took a model that was different than some of the other companies that were focusing more on profit and not growth, whereas Amazon was focusing more on growth and really they were in the red for quite a bit. So that was a risk that they were taking because at the end of the day, they had investors. So that was a risk that they took, but if you can see where Amazon is now, that was a risk worth taking. So it depends on the model you want to take as far as being a disruptor. So there are risks, but obviously some of the risks pay off, like in the case of Amazon. Now I just want to touch on, as far as with the Bahamas, the government at this point, because we are a partner with the government, and I know we've heard Cybernetica speak yesterday. Where Estonia is, as far as with their applications and letting the agencies speak with one another, they are leading the world in that. But what the government of the Bahamas has been able to do as far as their network and infrastructure, we're ahead of Estonia at this point. So now the only thing left now is to work with the agencies and get that application layer, and it's not that far away. So they have added right now a voice platform that is already saving millions of dollars for the government of the Bahamas. So you have a customs agent in Mayaguana that can call a customs agent in Grand Bahama for free once it's on there. So all of those costs are going away. So obviously we're working with the Ministry of Education at this point. So that's tying with education. And we're going to hope to see a lot of advances within education. Obviously the minister will speak on that, I think, tomorrow, where he would like to be, and the infrastructure is there to make anything happen at this point right now today.
So when we look at some of the technologies that are out there now, like prescriptive analytics, blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, I can imagine that it would create some uneasiness in the workforce. So can we talk about some other conflicts that you think could possibly arise from disruptive ideas?
Well, sorry, it's me.
Anybody can jump in, yeah.
Yeah, I think disruption naturally it displaces. When we talk about impact on labor force, I think naturally any new technology is an efficiency gain for a industry, or it increases the productivity of an economy. But the human character and the nature of humans and the way that we always evolve with the technology. So I think the fears are unfortunate because we have the capacity to evolve into new ideas and new ways of doing work, and we have to leverage technology so that we stay apace with it. So I think the conflicts, what we see as conflicts are really opportunities, and those opportunities are for us to further disrupt and further innovate. There's a concept that innovation is iteration, and what we're looking at is stages of development at various industry levels, macroeconomically, and even globally. So we're looking at stage development. I think when new technologies come in and they disrupt the way that the labor force works, what that requires is that the new generation, we keep talking about the young people are the next stage of the development of our country. So for instance, we look at my colleague here from BTVI, we are talking about how persons are getting certified in a few months versus doing a 4-year degree, where in the past that's what it took. So we are talking about accessibility of education through the use of technology. And also we have to look at what the new technology requires of the labor force, which is skills more so than a degree, so to speak. So we're looking at skills development more so. So there's a broader base of accessibility for younger persons who may not necessarily be academically inclined to get involved in the workforce. So technology is more of an opportunity than a conflict in that case.
Would anybody else like to share their view on that?
I like to jump in right there with the word creativity. And what we have to do, they say the end result of learning is creation. And our students, we're trying to get them in that mindset that they become creative and move away from the being reactive. And we've started, and in this changing arena, you have to be responsive to change, but you also have to get ahead of the change. And what we're trying to do is to get ahead of the change. So in a few years, what you'll find is that we will begin to innovate. And that's where we are trying to get to, being innovative, being creative. And my colleague mentioned Amazon. But Amazon really wanted to be the most customer-centric company in the world. That was their goal. Their goal was not profit. Profit came afterwards. Now, they might be disruptive, but their model made it possible for a lot of other companies to be successful. And what you find is that companies that don't evolve, they go out of business. Let's take Sears, for example. Sears, they're closing down all these stores. Why? Sears didn't look into going online. But look at Amazon, Walmart. That's a big company. But right now you could go onto Walmart's website and purchase stuff from a third-party vendor. That's just like Amazon. So everybody is evolving. The companies need creative people. They need thinkers. And so we're not just about certification, we're about thinking. So we have 7 different pathways that we put our students on.
Also, to chime in, on the point with disruptors creating conflicts within the marketplace, right? I think it's important that we have meaningful exchange that I mentioned earlier. It has to be to the ground level, where it's not just conversation, discussion, but it has to be articulated in such a way that all get the point, okay? And, as relates to companies that found their way faced with disruptors, let's talk about one that took place internally. Let's think of Kodak, okay? Kodak with the 35 millimeter film. There was an employee within Kodak who spoke about the digital era that was coming in the camera. They thought it was too slow. Cannibalized themselves out of business, all right? We also have high value with respect to transportation. Look at Uber. Look what they did, okay? They did not go after those who were taking public transportation, the high-end vehicles for transport. The taxis, that already existed. They just improved the service, all right? Many may have looked at it as disruptive, but it was disruptive with benefits, okay? Because I don't think there are many of us who do travel now who may not even consider Uber if they don't even use it. They're thinking about it because they heard about it, all right? So I think our message, while we sit here and when we leave this place, it must be simplified and articulated so that all get the point, not just those who are at that level and who's sitting at this level. I think we need to simplify our messages, okay?
I heard us mention quite a few times the next generation, who some of them are in this room right now, and a lot about changing mindsets. As a country, as a nation, as policymakers, as heads of industry, how do we change from what is to what if and start paving that way? Because that's a big transition in even the way that we think. So how do we start gaining that conversation? Not all at once.
Well, I think you need champions. I think in every sector you have young people that are in those sectors right now that may be afraid of stepping out on their own and doing their own thing and taking the risk of trying to innovate and come up with new ways of doing things. But the way that the world works is that, disruptors are fearless people. They show up and they bring new things to the market. They violent opposition from existing entrants. And it is what it is because value is what you are selling. You're not selling, I'm trying to sell a product to you. You're selling a value proposition. You're selling benefits, not features. So young people who may be in this room right now may have an idea, okay, I don't need to go through all those steps to get something done. Maybe if I go from A to B. I saw an interesting meme, I think Smart, and I showed this little girl, she was doing a formula of how to get to 20. And she, they had different amount of numbers that you'd have to plug in. So she simply puts 20 straight down and 0 for each formula. And so you're cutting out steps, essentially. And the view is that young people are thinking smart these days. They're not thinking, I must go through this process and this process. And if you talk to a young person always asks why and what if, not what is. And this is how it is. If you talk to an older person always tells you this is what it is. And this is how it's done. And this is how it's always been done. But younger people are naturally inclined to challenge the status quo. And I think if you take that, you add the training that we're talking about, the education, the change in perspective and approach, and you marry those things, I think you're going to see natural disruption occurring in jurisdiction. And people are starting to think bigger because of access to the internet. And so I think it's a natural thing that happens with the technology.
Well, think about people buying patterns. We no longer mostly buy brands. We go and we look at the reviews. And depending on how many stars it's got and what our neighbors said about it. So that's changed the market. Now, the people who produce, they have to change the level of quality and the service that they offer because it's constantly being reviewed. And this is because of the evolution of technology. So again, it comes back down to perspective. What's a problem for someone is an opportunity for another person. And I don't think disruptors actually set out to being disruptors. Normally, it's someone who really just wants to do something better
Or fill the niche.
or fill the niche.
You know, and there are many gaps that exist. I'll give you another example. There was, with respect to Amazon, right? Amazon found a value in ensuring that the delivery of their goods, that which can very well be, they're exploring this right now with the drones, okay? To the front door. You have architects are now reconsidering the designs of front doors and access to homes so that a deliverer for Amazon can have access into an area, offload, if it's not the drone, obviously, physically offload, leave out, and never enters your main home, just the area where it has to offload the product. And this is happening. Architects are looking at this. People are designing their smart homes to accommodate this. We're not there yet, but we have many locally who are giving thought to these type of technologies within their homes.
I want to just jump. I just want to add something to what he's saying. Business cycles have, entry points and maturity dates and expiry dates. So young people have to take advantage of the fact that in every industry, a certain business strategy or model has a lifespan. And you just have to pay attention to the fact that these things don't exist forever, and change is inevitable. And so what young people must do is start looking at the business cycle and saying, what is mature to a point where there's need for innovation, there's need for new ideas and how to do things. And usually the customers, the demand is where you can find those answers. So the demand comes to you and says, oh, people start to riot, or people start to move away from other business models naturally. And you, as a young person, you pay attention to that. You say, okay, well, I'm starting to see that people are migrating to other things now. So we know that social media started, it was big, impactful with high five and these sorts of things, We have I old. So, well, not that old. But the thing is, then Facebook came, and then, Instagram came, and then Snapchat. And so how people consume media is a lot different from when social media first came on. So what we have to look at as young people is, okay, in every last industry that is globally, because we're not just thinking about the Bahamas, we're thinking about what we can do in the world, how we can have an impact on the world. We have to look at what is the business cycle, what is the maturity, how has this industry matured, what are the indicators of new entrants and a decrease in investment in this industry, and how can we take that and develop our own business models, our own business strategies as to how we're going to go to market.
I think here at home, to ask the question of where we're at now and where we want to be, I actually asked myself this question multiple times. I've spoken with Rashif on this at length. I actually put together a document that actually the current DPM asked me to put this together for him based on where we could probably get to, and I did some extensive research on Estonia because they were actually the leader in digitization. So I put together this document which I made public, and I think why I'm saying this is when I did this and I gave this out, there were many people that were like, are you getting paid for this? How is this going to make money for you? How are you going to do this or not? But at the end of the day, I think we need to start thinking about how this is going to benefit you personally, and then because at the end of the day, I probably won't see it, but these young persons are going to actually have to be the ones to actually move everything forward. So I think collectively, we have to look at how it's going to benefit the entire country instead of just ourselves. Because at the end of the day, I didn't have to come back to the Bahamas, but I want to make the Bahamas the best country that it needs to be.
So things like this tech summit is a great jumping off point, but how do we make this real and sustainable? And you talked about dialogue, you talked about getting people around the table, you're talking about education, you're talking about putting things out in the public domain. How do we continue this conversation? How do we get the necessary folks together, or even Joe average public? And you talked about young people, but I'm sure us old people, there are things that we can contribute to the conversation. How do you get those folks around the table to continue this so this becomes something that's real, because as a country we're small, and we always talk about the potential, the potential, the potential of the Bahamas, but I think, you know, we don't want to just be invited to the party, possibly. We want to make sure that we're there with VIP platinum access. So how do we get this and make this real?
I think, like I said, I think the government of Bahamas is actually, obviously this is important for Grand Bahama. But from the beginning, I said, I think this is a national initiative that needs to take place. I am a Grand Bahamian. Yeah, there's a slight competition between Grand Bahama and New Providence, but at the end of the day, it has to be a national initiative. I think the government of the Bahamas is taking the right step, but there's still more to be done. And like I said, I'm not a lawyer, so I need some help from my lawyer friends here to look at some of the legal changes that need to take place. And he'll definitely speak on this part. And trust me, Michael gets a lot of emails from me too.
Yeah, no, I think, and just to follow up what Ronaldo was saying, the point is, what we're looking at in our country is we have to come together beyond government, and we have to start, because everybody in this room is a disruptor in their own way, to be honest. We just have to have the boldness to take our ideas out of our head and put it into reality. And I think that boldness is coming because the business environment is improving in the Bahamas, and you know, the governments have consecutively done incremental things to improve the business environment, which is very important to be able to bring an idea to market. I think as well as when we think about what Bahamians are starting to see as the potential to export their intellectual capacity and their abilities outside of the Bahamas, I think those opportunities are becoming more clear. And as they become more clear, you're going to see a lot more activity and things that were not there before. I think one of the industries that we see it in right now is the social media and telecoms, and you know, you're starting to see an evolution of Bahamian presence in this global community. So everybody's on Instagram and would have followers, and that is an indicator that, okay, if someone has from the Bahamas who's a social media person has about 20,000 followers, 50,000 followers, you know. If you get into those numbers, you're starting to have presence outside of the Bahamas. And so and then you start to see products, people looking for endorsements. And you look in sports, look at what Bahamians are doing right now in sports. And people are starting to look at the Bahamas in other ways. They're saying sports, potential for the energy sector, tourism is also evolving. So I think the more we start to get out there and market ourselves as not just a nice place to come and sit on the beach, but as a place where we have so much potential, untapped, because you know, investors like to go into places with untapped potential so that they can be early adopters and they can earn from the creative capacity of Bahamians. But I think every last person in this room is a disruptor, and we just have to be bold enough to step out on faith and take our ideas to market and see what happens. It's nothing we can't lose.
Yeah. Also to add to both Rashif as well as Ronaldo, the Bahamas is already well poised to take on any type of business. Mature legislation, we're well educated, we're personable, we got the location. However, we must find ways, from the private perspective, to drive the economy. It cannot be the reliance on government, because while governments are understood to be continuous, or ought to be, it's not always a reality that we face. So it's important where I sit as a regulator to work within the framework set up by the policies made by government, but I'm a regulator. And for me, I have to interact with government, I interact with both public and private, okay? Now, I think we're just about there if we're not there already. It's just not being realized. We have to drive this from where you sit, not from where I sit, because I must find a way to complement innovation. I must find a way to be proactive and anticipate what's coming next. But I can't set rules unless I understand it. And just because how it started out in terms of development of some technology doesn't necessarily mean how it's going to end. Okay? Because it changes. So, you know, I tip my hat every opportunity I get to sit and speak with somebody who is technically savvy. That technological mind, I love to engage them, okay? So I invite as many as possible, as often as you can. Reach out to them, but let's drive our economy from where we sit, not so much from waiting and sitting back and waiting on government.
Well, one thing I must say is that the government is operating kind of like scientists now. They're researching and developing. They have brought the best and brightest minds together to discuss, analyze, propose new solutions. But they've also been using the technology to get feedback from the population, from the other experts. And the decisions that are being made are not being made in a vacuum. They're being made with an end in mind. And so I think, as my friend said, you know, we're all disruptors. And that's because we have a mind. We're thinking, and we're being creative. And I think it will be sustainable because we are changing as things change.
All right, I think we're just about out of time, so I want to thank everyone for being open and honest with your feedback, and I truly hope that this is not the last time that we have this conversation. We don't need panels, we don't need mics, we just need folks who want to think about things differently. So I thank you all. Great talk.
Thank you.
Thank you, Filcher, and our panelists. We have lots of opportunities and emerging opportunities. We understand staged development is a necessary part of this process as we see technology as an opportunity. Once again, thank you to our panel discussion, our participants. As we transition forward right now, we're going to invite to our center stage for a topic on digital transformation, an integrated approach. I'm inviting Mr. Fabian Gonzalez and Christine Tanway with Oracle. Let's invite them with a warm round of applause.
Testing, testing. Good afternoon, everyone. How's everybody doing? Good? It's almost the end of the day, so we're not going to keep you too long. But we do want to start, before we jump into our presentation, just to say a big thank you to the Office of the Prime Minister for allowing us to be here for this event. This is the first time that we're here, and we hope to be able to participate in many more of these events. And we know this wouldn't be possible without our partner, Cloud Carib, who also helped us in being here this week. And the partnership that we have with Cloud Carib does go back many years. They've been an integral part in a number of the projects that we've actually done for the Bahamian government, for the electronic single window project at Customs, as well as the HR projects that we've done with the core government. So we do want to say thank you to Office of the Prime Minister and to Cloud Carib. We're just waiting for our presentation to start. So originally, when we had agreed to do this event, we have a funny inside joke. So this is really Carlos, and I'm really Ruiz, who is our VP, who was supposed to be here, but unfortunately couldn't make it. So you have the pleasure of sitting in on our presentation, Fabian Gonzalez for the region, and I'm Christine Chanway. So while they're getting the presentation started up, today what we're really here to talk to you about is our approach, as in Oracle's approach to digital transformation. I know there's been a number of presentations this week on the way in which people see digital transformation, and there's different takes on it depending on the technology that you represent or the company that you represent. There's just different ways that we look on it. From an Oracle perspective, we actually take a slightly different approach, primarily because we come from that background of applications and core solutions that run your business and run your government and your organizations. So it's a slightly different way that we see things. A big part of it is leveraging people, empowering people like yourselves to actually make that transformation possible. And then having that technology in the back end actually doing that, that enablement for your employees, for your citizens, for your executives, to actually be able to transform the way in which your business runs and the way in which you work, to make things easier for each of us as we interact with these systems and with our governments and our organizations. Any questions on who we are in terms of Oracle? Some of you, show of hands, those of you who know who Oracle is. Good, at least we have a few hands, that's good. So Oracle has actually been around for over 40 years. We actually started off in the database region. So most people, when we say, hey, we represent Oracle, they go, yeah, we know we use Oracle databases, when in fact we actually do a lot more than just databases. So we actually are a big part of what, like I mentioned, handles your HR systems, your finance systems, and even more so, we handle customer experience or citizen experience, which is a big part of how we do that digital transformation, and that's a part of what we're going to show you in our presentation today. And today's a very interesting day with how technology works, right? We swear the presentation was working before. We're not just here to crack jokes today. So a big part of what we want people to think about as we go through this presentation, what we want you to take away today is, what is your purpose? So when you look at your organization, what is your purpose in your organization? Most people will say, well, you know, my role is an administrator, and that's all my job is. That's my day-to-day goal, things that I need to do 24/7. But we want you to think more about more than just that standard day-to-day job. Your purpose and your role in how we see the future for digital transformation needs to go beyond that. And we need to be able to enable our employees and our citizens to go beyond that. So that purpose becomes more of an extension and something that's fluid that can grow as technology changes and as things change. So where did we take some of our inspiration from around digital transformation? A lot of it came from 3 of our top customers, which are Starbucks, Google, Facebook. When we look at how Starbucks sees their business, a lot of it is on a human-to-human interaction. When you go into a Starbucks and you order a coffee, you're getting a personalized experience. You're getting your coffee done exactly how you want it to be done. And it's personalized for you. It's not like back in the days when you go to a coffee shop and you order a coffee and it's just one plain coffee and you add your milk and your cream and your sugar. It's a very personalized approach, which is again going back to that digital transformation, having that technology to be able to do things like that. Google is another perfect example. Google back in the days was a traditional search engine, and it still has that traditional search engine capability. But when we look at Google today, you're able to talk to Google. You're able to say, hey Google, tell me what's the cheapest flight to Freeport, Bahamas, so I can be there for the Bahamas Tech Summit. And it's able to give you that response. That's a big part of when we talk about digital transformation, that change in the way we interact with technology. When we look at Facebook, initially when Facebook came out, just like MySpace, it was all about me having a relationship with my friends and my family, my closed circle. And Facebook now has grown to the point where we're dealing with communities. I can go on to Facebook and join a marketplace where I can trade goods, I can purchase things, I can see what's going on in my neighborhood. So it's an extension of the way in which we interact and we do things. And a lot of that, again, is coming from that digital transformation. And a big part of what's pushing that is a lot of our millennials that are coming up into the workforce. A lot of the kids that are going to be, coding at the age of 3, like Fabian was mentioning, which is going to be his daughter. So when we think of purpose, we're thinking of the context, we're thinking of the need, and we're thinking of the opportunity that comes with that. To be able for all of us to be more to our organizations from that digital perspective. And again, if we're thinking about where we're coming from, and where we're going to, we're looking at coming from that steam engine era to the electrical era, to the computing era, and now artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, where we're able to do a lot more. So we're talking about really and truly being able to work smarter, not harder, by leveraging technology.
Thank you, Christine. All right, so for the transformation of the world, how is it, the word innovation or transforming the world means a lot and probably different things to each one of us over here, right? Transforming the world will start with you guys. We'll start with the government. How is it that we are empowering our employees, our associates, the businesses that are working around the government? How is it that we are empowering them for them to be successful? How are we empowering the government to become successful as well? So the idea here is for the government officials to start thinking, what will happen 3 years from now when they are not in office? 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What is it that the new generations will pick up based on the decisions that they are making right now, right? So the idea here is like technology definitely will make a difference when you guys take the right path. I'm sorry. With the transformation as well, we have been hearing a lot about the new technologies, the blockchain technology, the artificial technology, and how is it that those technologies will make a difference in our government, right? How is it that those technologies will make a difference at school? Or How is it that those technologies will make a difference in the businesses? I heard that the panel, because they were discussing about blockchain. For the most part, we think about blockchain when we think about the cryptocurrencies. And that is a great subject. But I think blockchain can take us even further. Right now, we are working through the Caribbean in a blockchain project where blockchain will help when it comes to elections. How is it that we will have transparent elections? How is it that those technologies will make a difference when it comes to the electoral times, right? That will make a difference when you guys have certainty that the information that is in each one of the tables where you cast your vote is in fact the one that you are counting on, right? Same thing with artificial intelligence, same thing with, what else do we have? Blockchain, artificial intelligence, IoT. IoT, yesterday we had the workshop on IoT, and it was terrific. I don't know if you guys were able to join it, but I mean, many questions were raised where IoT will make a difference in countries like this where you guys depend on vessels coming in, coming out. So those new technologies will definitely start making a difference. I want to tell you also, how is it that we are transforming? How is it that the governments are behaving? These are statistics of the information that we gather from last year. Governments are spending a lot of money. 75% of their money are usually going to investment in operations and maintenance, which is great. I mean, we have to do the best that we can with the decisions that we have right now. But as soon as we start integrating new technologies, as soon as we start investing in those new technologies, that percentage should go out to those technologies that will optimize the technology and the jobs that you guys are taking right now. As a funny fact, right now, in the next 20 or 30 years to come, the kids that will be having the jobs or the future jobs that will be available are not even invented yet, because the technologies are transforming constantly. So the engineers right now probably will have to look for another scope of business, because I know things will be different. Right now in Oracle, we are working a lot in transforming the governments, transforming the countries, and why not going down to transforming the cities. We are reinforcing on safe cities, smart buildings, education, health cities, and mobile. And how do we do that? We have different ways of doing it. We have something that is called the modern back office, where we have the ERP, the EPM solutions, that right now some of them are, for most part, all of them are in the cloud-based offering that we have right now. We also have the modern front office, where the citizens experience, where the citizens are in charge of those technologies. Citizens will be more active with the government, and those are the tendencies or the solutions that we are looking forward to implement in the different territories that we work with. So nowadays, like you were hearing, integration, IoT, business intelligence is definitely changing the world. Mobile technologies, everything from SaaS technologies to ES to DaaS, big data will start to make a difference a lot as well. I would like to stop over here also to speak about the support or the inspiration that we are doing to change future citizens. And I know you stole my line, but I was thinking about my daughter. My daughter should be born in the next month or so, and I know that she will be coding at the age of 3. There is no doubt about it, and I have to be coping with that. I have to make sure that I know more than her when she becomes 3, because that's how it is. You know, nowadays those kids comes with a different chip. What is Oracle is doing right now, and we have to work harder in the Bahamas, is because we have something that is called Oracle University. We have Oracle University, we have Oracle Academy. Both of them are great resources for us to start founding the new generations. In the panel, they were talking about education. How is it that we are doing it? What is the next step? Well, the next step is pretty easy. The next step is to, like the companies who are enhancing, the companies who are working towards education, need to start opening the doors, opening with the Department of Education, start working with them to see what is it that we have to offer. For instance, we have Oracle Academy. We will start meeting with the Department of Education in the days to come. because we want to make sure that the new generations are able to code in Java. We have to make sure that they are starting to get that information from early stages, from early ages, and everything is free of charge. I mean, right now, Oracle has the commitment with the yeah. That is great. So that is something that we'll work with local partners as well, like Cloud Carib. This is something that I want you guys to take advantage of it. We closed one of our biggest relationships, if I may call it like that, with Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico right now is using Oracle Academy free of charge again. And about a month ago, we closed it with the government of the Dominican Republic. So I don't see why not. We cannot do the same thing on the English Caribbean countries, right? So there we go. On top of that, of the Oracle Academy, which is free of charge, we have something that is called Oracle University. Oracle University is the complement of Oracle Academy. If those students, if they like what they are learning, if they want to take it to the next level, if they want to get certification, then they jump into the Oracle University. That's where we make the next professionals when it comes to technology. And it doesn't have to be branded. It doesn't have to be an Oracle brand, an Oracle certification per se, right? When we speak about Java, Java will have several usage where those kids will make a lot of difference. So what are we doing today? How are we empowering the transformation? How are we changing the world? I am going to show you a few examples on how is it that we are doing it in different territories where they have chosen this path, right? One of them is the city of San Jose. They will become America's most innovative technology by 2020. They have created the 311 service, all of that based in Oracle technology. The citizens are, for the most part, always having a say in government's decision. There is an app where they are able to interact 24/7 with government. City of Las Vegas is also, they launched the e-services framework. Right now, they are continuously developing in this application where not only the citizens, but the external citizens, when we go there for vacations, are also or will have a say on the things that are happening at the city, especially nowadays that everything might happen in those crowded cities. City of Buenos Aires, for this is one of my, I love to speak about the city of Buenos Aires because that's one of the cities in South America that measures pretty much everything. Every single drop of water that goes through your house, that comes out of your house, that comes from the cloud, you guys will be able to, or they will be able to measure it. So they have a huge platform for IoT. Like they sense every single thing when it comes to water, rainfall, and I think we have to look at those cities that are making a difference. Those cities that are definitely seeing what is it that they need to measure in order for them to become better, right? So we have to find the same thing over here in the Bahamas, right? I don't know, you name it, the hurricanes, maybe because you guys so far apart, there are so many islands. I am pretty sure that we have to work together to see what is it that will make sense to you, to sense and to make a difference, to change the way you guys are behaving right now. And the other one, before I let you go, we have the city of, the country of Puerto Rico. I had the pleasure to live there for almost 2 years, a year and a half, more or less. And I was the lucky one who received the first strike of Maria. So Maria last year did a lot of damage to the island, right? And the government somehow was prepared for it. If you guys heard on the news that we were doing really bad, we were doing really bad. It was a nightmare. But at the same time, the government was using technology, Oracle technology, and for the most part, most of the employees of the government received their payment on time, and they were able to either go off the island or they were able to purchase new stuff. We were able to access to new or to the goods that were available for us back then. So what I'm trying to tell here is that there is a lot of disruptive technologies out there, but at the same time, there's a lot of changes that we can do in the government. When we start thinking about the cloud solutions, right? Cloud right now is definitely the way that we have to start looking at, especially in this region in the Caribbean, we are always in danger every single year with the hurricanes. And we don't know what's going to happen with the data that is on-premise. It's important that you guys seek and understand what are the benefits, the advantages of having those type of solutions. I think that's it from my end. I would like, before I go, I would like to invite you. Right now, we are going to have the HR workshop that is going to start in about 5 or 10 minutes. So if you guys want to learn more about the human resources solution that we have to offer, you guys are more than welcome to come. And tomorrow, we are going to have the CX solution as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Fabian and Christine. Our takeaways: preparation for the future Oracle Academy. We congratulate you with your inroads in coding and capabilities with cloud technology and what you're doing with successive governments with your innovation. As we prepare right now for our final workshop that will be held on our main stage, which begins in a couple of minutes, I'm going to ask our participants in the topic of tools to fund technology and innovation projects, if they can prepare themselves. This particular workshop, which will be held right here, is facilitated by the IDB, and so our presenters for this session, Makia Carter and Gavin Moss. If you can prepare yourself for our final workshop, which will be held right here. Now, there are other workshops going on, but the main stage workshop will be held in a couple of minutes, facilitated by the IDB, Makia Carter and Gavin Moss.